Whether you're prepping for a meeting, catching up on a new genre, or just insanely curious, we've got a fascinating exploration for you today.
We really do. I am so excited to get into this one.
Right, because usually when we talk about a medical diagnosis, there's this expectation of, absolute precision.
Oh, totally. Like an engineering problem.
Exactly. You break your arm, the x-ray shows that jagged white line, and the doctor just points at the film and says, boom, there it is. That's the problem.
Right, it's a binary system, broken or not broken.
Yeah.
And honestly, the parameters are clean, and that clarity is super comforting. We inherently prefer our pain to be visible, right? To be easily categorized.
Untreated, yeah.
Exactly, easily treated.
But then you step into the world of neurodevelopment, of long-term psychological trauma, and suddenly that x-ray machine is just totally useless.
Yeah, the diagnostic landscape becomes entirely murky.
It really does. And today, we are plunging straight into that ambiguity. We're doing a deep dive into excerpts from the novel Love in Other Words.
By Christina Lauren, right?
Right. Which, for those keeping track, is actually the combined pen name of longtime writing partners and best friends, Christina Hobbs and Lauren Billings.
It's such a cool dynamic they have.
It really is. So our mission today isn't just to recap a story. We're going to explore how this narrative masterfully uses a dual timeline, jumping between a then and a now, to unpack the long-term architecture of grief.
We're also going to look at the undeniable power of shared vocabulary.
That part is so good.
It really is. And we'll dissect the anatomy of what makes a true soulmate connection versus, what makes a safe harbor relationship.
So to orient you, the listener, in this world, our focal point is Macy Sorensen.
Right. And in the now timeline, she is an adult working as a pediatric critical care resident in San Francisco.
Which is just a tremendously heavy job.
Oh, incredibly.
Yeah.
She leads this grueling, sleep-deprived life, but it's a life she has meticulously constructed to be incredibly safe. Her world is predictable.
But that carefully calibrated existence is just completely upended when, on a totally random Tuesday, she runs into Elliot Petropoulos.
Yeah, and Elliot isn't just an old friend. He is her childhood best friend, her first love, and someone she has not spoken a single word to in 11 years.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand the absolute devastation of that reunion, we can't just start in the present day.
No, you really can't.
Right? If we only look at the explosive collision of their adulthood, we miss the entire foundation.
Yeah.
We have to start with the foundational trauma in Macy's past that completely rewired her understanding of what love even is.
Exactly. The prologue of this text establishes the architecture of her grief by first establishing the benchmark of her parents' marriage.
Which was intense.
Very. They had what Macy describes as an all-consuming love.
Well,
the text provides these striking visual contrasts to illustrate it, too.
Yeah, you have her father, right?
Right, a towering Danish man who stands 6'5", and her mother, a petite Brazilian woman just over 5'3".
Who didn't even speak English when they first met.
Exactly. Yet, by the time the mother tragically passes away when Macy is only 10 years old, it's as if these two parents had created their own entirely private, impenetrable language.
There's this incredibly specific imagery I want to highlight here because it sets up the entire psychological framework of the narrative.
The hugging scene.
Yes.
Yeah.
Macy remembers how her dad would hug her mom when he got home from work. He would wrap his arms all the way around her shoulders, curving his massive body over hers.
It's such a vivid picture.
Right. The text says his arms became a set of parentheses bracketing the sweetest secret phrase.
Parentheses. It's just a stunning literary way to describe an embrace.
It is, but I want to push on this a bit. Doesn't that imagery also inherently isolate that love?
Oh, absolutely it does.
Like, Macy herself notes that she would disappear into the background when they touched. She felt like she was witnessing something sacred that she wasn't entirely a part of.
That is a crucial observation. It creates a closed circuit. When a child witnesses a love that intense, it sets a terrifyingly high, almost mythological benchmark.
Right, Macy explicitly writes, "It never occurred to me that love could be anything other than all-consuming."
And that is a really dangerous baseline to carry into adulthood.
Yeah, because what happens when that all-consuming presence is violently removed?
Exactly. A cluster of malignant cells kills her mother, and that all-consuming love instantaneously transforms into an all-consuming void.
And the way Macy describes the aftermath of that loss is just visceral.
Oh, it's heartbreaking.
She says she felt like she was drowning in all the love she still had that could never be given. She describes it as filling her up, choking her like a rag doused in kerosene.
Wow. That isn't just sadness.
No. That is suffocating, burning, toxic grief. And she recognizes that as much as it is destroying her, it is somehow even worse for her dad.
Which brings us to this incredibly compelling coping mechanism. Before dying, the mother leaves a meticulously detailed...
Picking up a couple of encouraging sticky notes on the fridge, right?
Not at all. This is a comprehensive manual that goes deep into the 50s in terms of numbered rules. It essentially functions as an emotional will.
Okay, wait. To understand why this list is so vital, we have to look at the father's psychological profile, don't we?
Yes, exactly. He is a quiet, straightforward, deeply literal man.
Right.
The text emphasizes that he walked quietly, he spoke quietly, and even his anger was quiet. The only thing about him that was loud was his love for his wife.
A roaring, vociferous bellow, I think it says.
Right. But without her, he totally lacks the intuitive emotional vocabulary to navigate a grieving teenage daughter. He doesn't possess the inherent tools to guide a young girl through puberty and profound maternal loss.
So he clings to the mother's written manual as if it were a sacred text.
Precisely. Let's look at a few of these rules, actually, because they are so illuminating regarding the mother's foresight.
Yeah, hit me with them.
So rule 1 is don't spoil her with toys, spoil her with books. Rule 2, tell her you love her. Girls need the words.
Girls need the words. That's so powerful.
It is. Rule 3, when she's quiet, you do the talking. Then there are practical ones like Rule 4, teaching her the value of money by saving 2 out of her $10 allowance.
And Rule 5, a strict 10 o'clock curfew until she's 16. You can clearly see the mother's desperate attempt to parent from beyond the grave here.
Absolutely. She is trying to ensure her influence, her values, and her protective nature are still felt even when she is physically gone.
But it is Rule 25 that literally alters the physical geography of Macy's life.
Oh, yes, the getaway rule.
Right. The rule dictates when Macy looks so tired after school that she can't even form a sentence, take her away from the stress of her life. Find a weekend getaway that is easy and close, that lets her breathe a little.
So interesting how he interprets that.
It really is. It's like the dad is treating emotional development like IKEA furniture assembly.
Ha, that's a great way to put it.
Right. He's terrified of missing a step or using the wrong screw, so he's following the instructions to the absolute letter.
Yeah, he doesn't want to mess it up.
Exactly. Now, I have to imagine the mom probably meant, take her to a nice hotel on the coast for a night or go for a scenic drive.
Right, just a quick break.
But the dad, being this hyperliteral processor of information, saves up his money, aggressively researches small towns north of San Francisco, and actually purchases real estate.
It's such an extreme reaction.
It is. He buys a chronically damp, wood-shingled, sharply angled weekend cabin in Healdsburg, California, right next to a bubbling creek.
And inside this house, there's a massive walk-in closet that he transforms into a dedicated library for Macy.
Which is incredible. But here's my question for you. Is this closet library actually an incubator for emotional healing? Or is it just a beautifully decorated panic room where she can hide from reality?
Oh, that is the big question. I would argue it operates simultaneously as both, but leans really heavily toward a panic room in the beginning.
Okay, why?
To answer that fully, we have to analyze how grief is isolating Macy in her daily life back in the city. She is completely alienated from her peers.
Because they just don't get it.
Exactly. She describes the dull tedium of dealing with persistently dramatic middle school friends who have simply stopped knowing how to talk to her.
Or who've grown tired of her being mopey, right?
Right. Grief has a very short half-life for the people standing outside of it, but for the person inside, it feels eternal.
Yeah, that makes sense. And the father even tries to force socialization, doesn't he?
He does. He sends her to a kids club, which turns out to be a dedicated support group for grieving children.
Oh, the visceral awkwardness of that scene.
It is painful to read.
Macy walks into this huge white room that looks exactly like a clinical administrator tried to guess what teenagers like.
Boy band posters on the wall, pink and purple graffiti on bulletin boards, fuzzy beanbags scattered around.
Yeah. She feels entirely out of place because she doesn't want her entire identity to be the kid whose mom died. She just wants to be a normal girl, but her trauma makes normalcy impossible.
Precisely. And that is why the closet library in Healdsburg becomes her sanctuary. It is a highly controlled, tightly bounded physical environment where Macy can process her profound internal chaos through the safe, structured world of fiction.
Books offer what her life currently lacks: predictability.
Yes. They have a defined beginning, a middle, and an end. They follow narrative logic in a way that terminal cancer utterly defies.
The father builds this space because he sees her shutting down.
Right, he does. He sees her answering his probing questions with vacant moans after swim practice. So he creates a physical manifestation of her mother's love by surrounding her with the very items Rule 1 dictated books. He is literally building walls of words to protect her.
But a panic room only works if you're the only one in it.
Very true.
The second someone else breaches that highly controlled environment, the walls have to shift.
Yeah.
And that breach happens in the most unexpected way. Enter the boy next door, Elliot Petropoulos.
Ah, Elliot. His entrance is brilliant because it completely subverts her expectations of intrusion.
Tell me about that first meeting.
Well, during the open house, before they even officially buy the Healdsburg cabin, Macy wanders into that expansive closet and finds a boy already sitting in there.
Just hanging out in her future closet.
Exactly. He's skinny, described as a mix of sharp elbows and pointy shoulders. His shaggy hair is combed and his glasses keep sliding down his nose. And he is completely engrossed in a thick book with a dragon on the cover.
Right, and he tells her he lives next door and likes to read in there because it's quiet.
Yeah, he's totally unabashed about it.
And then he issues this incredibly charming, completely unpolished challenge to this grieving, guarded 13-year-old girl. He says, if you buy this house, I won't just come over and read in here.
And Macy thinks to herself, friend or foe, I could really use a friend.
Yeah, she tells him he can come over and read if they buy the house. And he just beams, showing all his teeth, and says maybe he was just getting the room warmed up for her.
Yeah. What is so compelling here is the psychology of their initial interaction. What's fascinating here is that Elliot immediately disarms her defenses precisely because he doesn't treat her like a fragile, broken object.
Because he doesn't even know, right?
Exactly. Initially, he doesn't even know her mother died. To him, she is just a new girl who might share his space. He provides an entirely blank slate for her.
Right. He's a self-proclaimed nerd who reads a book a day, which completely astounds Macy, by the way.
It does. And because he approaches her through the lens of literature, he unknowingly steps right onto the very path her mother laid out for her healing.
Yes. And that leads them to develop this incredible ritual in the closet, which they call the favorite word game.
Oh, I love the word game.
I really want to spend some time here because it is such a revealing mechanism for character development. Shared vocabulary is how they build their own isolated world.
It really is their bridge to each other.
Macy chooses words like ranunculus. It's a type of flower, and she tells him she likes how unexpected the word is compared to how pretty the actual flower is.
But what she withholds from Elliot initially is the heavier truth. It was her dead mother's favorite flower.
It is a brilliantly guarded revelation. She is offering him a massive piece of her vulnerability, a piece of her mother, but she masks it as just a quirky intellectual vocabulary choice.
She is testing the waters to see what he does with it.
And Elliot, being a typical teenage boy in that moment, calls it a girly answer.
Which is such a standard 14-year-old boy response.
Right. And Macy immediately challenges him back, betting his favorite word is something clinical and cold, like tungsten or amphibian.
But his actual answer subverts her expectations entirely. He chooses regurgitate.
Not exactly a pretty word.
No, but not because he's trying to be a gross teenage boy, but because he deeply appreciates the hard consonant sounds and the fact that it's an onomatopoeia. The word sounds exactly like the action it describes.
Macy actually notes that she expects trumpets to blast from the sky because she is so shocked to find a teenage boy who not only knows what the word onomatopoeia means, but genuinely appreciates the mechanics of language.
They continue to trade these linguistic tokens, too. Macy offers hushed, which, if we analyze it, perfectly encapsulates her internal emotional state at that time in her life. She is quiet, muted, suppressing her grief.
Yeah, that's spot on. And Elliot offers persimmon. Later on, he offers the word cynosure, which means a focal point of admiration or attention.
And Macy, refusing to let him be too lofty, hilariously counters with castration.
Which makes Elliot physically wince and examine his own hands.
It's just such a dynamic, intellectual sparring match.
It is. But here's where it gets really interesting. Think about what we established earlier. Macy's mother was a buyer for a large bookstore chain. She was fluent in multiple languages. Books, words, and reading are intrinsically, painfully tied to Macy's trauma of maternal loss.
Right, and Elliot steps into this massive emotional void.
Exactly. And he does it not by trying to awkwardly replace the mother or by offering empty, pitying sympathy like her peers in the city. He does it by fluently speaking the mother's language literature.
He really acts as a surrogate emotional anchor.
But I have to push back on this dynamic. He is filling in the gaps of a mother, a best friend, and eventually a boyfriend, all at once. Aren't they essentially building a fortress of vocabulary against the outside world?
Yes.
And frankly, isn't that way too much structural weight for a teenage relationship to bear?
You are hitting on the fundamental danger of their bond right there, and really the core tragedy of the narrative. It becomes too vital.
It's everything to her.
Exactly. The structural integrity of Macy's emotional life becomes entirely dependent on Elliot. We see this in how they communicate even when they are physically separated.
Right, the emails.
Yes, they exchange emails that are dripping with this intense intellectual teasing. Macy will joke about Nicholas Sparks being really, really good, purely to rile him up.
And Elliot earnestly defends the literary merit of Sir Walter Scott's Ivanhoe. He even admits to role-playing 12th century medieval battles with cardboard swords and horses with his friend Brandon in a community called the Nobles.
And Macy just eats that up. She tells him she can totally picture him on a cardboard horse yelling, "On guard!"
It's so cute. But it's crucial to point out that it's not all witty banter and jokes. There is a profound, almost jarring emotional depth to Elliot that completely defies his young age.
Very true.
Take the incredibly moving scene where Macy gets her period for the first time. She's up in her closet library in Healdsburg, reading a letter her mom left for her, specifically for this biological milestone.
The contents of that letter are just devastatingly beautiful. They highlight the agonizing gap the mother's death left.
Yeah, what does the letter say?
The mother writes, "Treat your body carefully. Every inch of your skin I made diligently. Months I slaved over you. You are my masterpiece."
Wow. And Macy is weeping in the closet, completely overwhelmed by the physical reality of growing into a woman without the woman who painstakingly created her.
And in the middle of this intensely private, painful moment, Elliot walks in.
Now, I want you, the listener, to put yourself in the shoes of an average 14-year-old boy walking into a dark closet and finding a teenage girl sobbing because she just got her period.
Most boys would literally sprint in the opposite direction.
They would completely panic. But what does Elliot do? He kneels down. He softly asks what's wrong. When she finally chokes out the truth, he does blush, but he doesn't retreat.
He tells her that his own mom is currently pregnant with a baby sister, and he insists it's his job as a big brother to learn the ropes.
So he sits there and asks Macy to explain the biology to him. He even offers to go downstairs and make her a warm water bottle because he knows that's what he does for his mom when she has cramps.
It demonstrates a level of emotional maturity and raw empathy that is staggering for a child. He recognizes her profound isolation and pain. He asks if she wants to talk about it, and when she clearly indicates she doesn't want to dissect the grief, he just stays present.
He doesn't try to fix the unfixable. He just ensures she isn't alone in it.
Right. He firmly establishes himself as her safe harbor in the storm, and he symbolically solidifies this role during Christmas.
Which is a really tough time for Macy.
Extremely tough. Macy is absolutely dreading the holidays because her mom was the architect of their Christmas magic, baking blueberry muffins, roasting a duck, reading aloud by the fireplace.
And Elliot innately understands the weight of this absence.
He does. So, standing on a freezing, windy beach, he hands her a wrapped gift. It's a copy of the book Bridge to Terabithia.
Which, if you have any familiarity with children's literature, you know is a devastatingly sad book about profound grief, the sudden loss of a best friend, and survivor's guilt.
It is an incredibly heavy gift.
It is. But it is deeply intentional, isn't it?
Yes, it is a form of bibliotherapy. Elliot tells her he hopes she likes it, and then he adds this line, "I sort of feel like I could be your Maybelle."
Oh, wow.
If you recall the book, Maybelle is the protagonist's younger sister. After the tragic death of his best friend, the protagonist eventually builds a literal and metaphorical bridge for Maybelle, bringing her across the creek and into the magical, imaginative world, ensuring he doesn't remain isolated in his grief.
So Elliot is explicitly telling Macy, I know you are trapped in a world of mourning. I cannot bring your mother back, but I will build a bridge to you.
Exactly. I will come into your world of grief so you don't have to live there alone.
It is a breathtaking gesture. But, it brings us right back to that structural weight issue we talked about earlier. The higher the pedestal of this every friend relationship, the harder the inevitable fall.
That's the tragic reality.
If your entire psychological stability, your entire emotional framework is tethered to a skinny boy who reads Ivanhoe in a closet, what happens to your mind when that tether violently snaps?
The narrative brilliantly withholds the specifics of that rupture from us initially. Instead of letting us see the slow decay, the author violently yanks us 11 years into the future to witness the hardened aftermath of that fall.
The transition to the now timeline is jarring by design. It is Tuesday, October 3. Macy is an adult, and her entire existence is a monument to exhaustion.
She is currently working grueling 100-hour weeks as a pediatric critical care resident at the University of California, San Francisco.
Her morning commute is just, it sounds awful. Catching a bus at 6 a.m., transferring between two different BART train lines, and taking another bus just to reach Berkeley.
Yeah, she lives her life in mint green hospital scrubs and practical sneakers, functioning entirely on massive stainless steel travel mugs of cheap coffee.
I want to really dig into her career choice here, because it is not arbitrary. Even her friends question it. Her college roommate, Sabrina, who is a new mother to a baby named Vivian, explicitly calls it out while they are having coffee.
Sabrina is a great audience surrogate in that scene.
She is. When Macy mentions the reality of working with critically ill babies all day, Sabrina shudders and whispers, "I don't know how you do it." Sabrina openly suspects that Macy might be missing some important, tender internal mechanism.
Some maternal break, I think she calls it.
Yes, a maternal break that should psychologically prevent a person from being able to routinely, daily witness the horrific suffering of sick children without breaking down.
But Sabrina fundamentally misunderstands Macy's motivation. If we connect this to the broader psychological picture we built in Section 1, Macy's career is a direct, aggressive extension of her childhood trauma.
How so?
Well, when Macy was 10, she was utterly helpless. She couldn't save her mother. She had no agency against the brutal biology of cancer. By actively choosing pediatric critical care, she is deliberately placing herself in the absolute epicenter of medical crises.
Oh, wow.
On a subconscious level, she is attempting to save these children the way she couldn't be saved from her own devastating loss. Furthermore, let's look at the sheer volume of her labor. 100 hours a week. Why?
Because bone-deep exhaustion is a fantastic emotional anesthetic.
Exactly. Macy says it herself in her internal monologue work, Sleep, Repeat.
She has meticulously constructed a life of high stakes, physically punishing labor, specifically to avoid dealing with her own internal stillness. Because if she stops moving, the delayed grief of losing Elliot will finally catch up to her.
She is essentially weaponizing her own fatigue. She admits, unless something truly awful happens on the unit, I won't remember a single thing about it. She's actively choosing to live in a self-induced fugue state.
So picture this. She's sitting in this chaotic coffee shop in Berkeley with Sabrina. She's holding baby Vivian, just trying to passively absorb the mundane details of the outside world to ground herself.
Right, scanning the room.
She notes a woman with pink dreadlocks. She watches a barista with a neck tattoo steaming milk. And then her eyes land on a man's back.
The author's use of sensory detail here is masterful. It demonstrates exactly how deeply, fundamentally hardwired Elliot is into the very architecture of Macy's brain.
He looks just like any other guy in Berkeley, right?
Objectively, yes. The man has his back to her. He looks like 1,000 other guys hanging out in a cafe. But Macy's brain immediately clocks the specific, thick, messy black hair curling over his ears.
She notices the collar of his shirt folded under on one side.
Right. She sees the untucked shirt tails, the worn-in black jeans, the faded old-school check print slip-on Vans.
And then she sees the ultimate identifier. Tucked under his arm is a heavy, battered, dog-eared book. Because in Macy's entire universe, there is only one person who ritually rereads Sir Walter Scott's Ivanhoe every single October with absolute, unironic adoration.
It's Elliot Petropoulos.
But the boy from the closet is gone, isn't he?
He is physically transformed. The skinny, sharp-elbowed teenager has been replaced by a man. He is tall, his shoulders are broad, his jeans rest low on his hips in a way that exudes casual confidence.
Macy's internal monologue hilariously and painfully notes that he basically looks exactly like the kind of effortlessly attractive guy that used to sit around and silently ogle together as teenagers.
But the physical reaction she experiences upon confirming his identity is not romantic, it is violent.
I mean, think about a time you've experienced a sudden, massive shock. Now multiply that. We talked about Macy using exhaustion as a safe harbor. Well, imagine a dormant volcano you built your house on suddenly rumbling.
That's exactly what it is.
Macy has spent an entire decade putting her emotional core into a deep freeze, and Elliot's sudden presence is a blowtorch. The text describes her feeling as though all the oxygen has been instantly sucked out of the cafe.
It's a physiological panic response. She feels as if she's been physically punched in the solar plexus, her diaphragm momentarily paralyzed so she can't draw breath.
Sabrina, sitting right next to her, actually hears a creaking, dusty sound coming from Macy's throat.
And Macy's fight-or-flight response kicks in. She cheeses flight. She literally bolts out of the coffee shop, abandoning her friend and the baby.
But the avoidance tactic fails. Elliot catches up to her, outside on the sidewalk. He reaches out and grabs her upper arms, physically steadying her trembling body.
And he is just as breathless, just as shocked. He asks, did you move back here?
And in this rapid, chaotic exchange, he reveals the tragic, logistical truth of their 11-year silence.
He tells her, I called you like a million times, and then that number changed.
Oh, man. That is a devastating piece of information. This wasn't a natural fading of a childhood friendship. It was a sharp, deliberate severance.
And Macy just shuts down. She acts like a malfunctioning robot. She gives him clipped, clinical answers.
Position.
The resident city.
She gives him absolutely nothing to work with, flees back to the safety of the hospital, and convinces herself she has escaped the past.
After she hasn't.
Because 2 days later, on Thursday, October 5th, she walks out of UCSF, and Elliot is waiting for her. Now, I want to pause and talk about how he found her, because it is wild.
Oh, the high PA violation?
Yes. He knew her exact shift schedule.
Yeah.
He got it from his sister-in-law, Liz, who is married to his brother, George, and Liz just happens to work at the hospital reception desk.
Right.
Now, looking at this through a real-world lens, handing out a doctor's schedule to a guy off the street is a massive HR violation. That would get you fired instantly.
From a strict administrative and legal standpoint, it is absolutely a fireable offense. But we have to look at the narrative purpose of that breach.
Okay, lay it on me.
In the emotional context of this story, it is utilized to demonstrate the sheer, blinding desperation driving Elliot. Think about his perspective.
He lost her once.
He lost the most important person in his life once for 11 agonizing years simply because a phone number changed and he had no other way to track her down. Now, by some miracle of the universe, he has found her again.
He's absolutely not going to let administrative protocol or hospital rules allow her to disappear into the fog of San Francisco a second time.
Exactly. He leverages his family connections immediately because the stakes, losing the love of his life twice, are far too high to care about HR policies.
Wow.
Furthermore, introducing Liz serves a brilliant secondary purpose.
It immediately weaves the entire Petropoulos family back into Macy's consciousness.
Yes.
Oh, we have to talk about the Petropoulos family. They're such a vital piece of the puzzle.
Oh.
Growing up, they were the raucous, overwhelming life force living right next door to Macy's quiet, grief-stricken cabin.
They were everything she didn't have.
Exactly. They were the giant, chaotic, messy family Macy desperately craved but never had. You have Mr. Nick with his beefy, hairy arms, Ms. Dina with her deep dimples, constantly cooking massive Greek dinners with baby Alex slung against her chest in a carrier.
And the older brothers, Nick Jr., George, Andreas, and then Elliot.
Macy recalls this incredibly poignant memory of watching teenage Elliot patiently sitting on the sidelines, quietly waiting for his boisterous older brothers to finish wrestling in the living room, just so he could scoop up baby Alex, read to her, and give her his undivided, gentle attention.
Being near Elliot doesn't just mean confronting him, it means confronting the ghost of that entire family structure she still aches for.
Which brings us to the ultimate central conflict of Macy's adult life. Elliot's sudden return doesn't just threaten her emotional numbness. It poses an immediate existential threat to the very real, very safe life she has built with someone else.
Because, as we soon discover, Macy is engaged to be married.
Right. It's time to talk about Sean Chen. Sean is 42 years old. He is a successful artist and a wealthy hospital benefactor who donates massive art installations to Benioff Mission Bay.
And he comes with a built-in family, right?
Yeah, a 6-year-old daughter named Phoebe. The text describes Sean as mellow, highly pragmatic, and financially secure.
That financial security is no small detail when you are a resident drowning in medical school loans.
Totally. He makes a mean cup of coffee, and he keeps his apartment thermostat set very high because he's originally from Central Texas. He is, in every conceivable way, warm and comfortable.
Sean is the absolute epitome of the safe harbor. He is a calm bay where Macy can drop anchor without fear of a storm.
But then there's breakfast with Elliot.
Right. After the initial shock of seeing Elliot outside the hospital, Elliot manages to convince Macy to sit down for breakfast. The contrast in their demeanors during this meal is stark.
Elliot is just entirely comfortable in his own skin, isn't he?
He is. He's reading, humming to himself, casually scratching his neck, fully occupying his adult body. Macy, meanwhile, is practically vibrating with anxiety, just trying to survive the duration of the encounter.
And then Elliot drops an absolute emotional bombshell right in the middle of breakfast. He casually informs her that he broke up with his girlfriend, Rachel, the night before.
Literally hours after running into Macy at the coffee shop for a grand total of 2 minutes.
Macy is stunned, and Elliot explains his reasoning with brutal clarity. He essentially says, "I assumed I would eventually get over you. I thought time would do its job. But seeing you yesterday proved it hasn't."
He couldn't go home to another woman and pretend to love her with everything he has when the actual love of his life is back in the same city.
If Sean is the safe harbor, Elliot is the open ocean. Elliot operates on a frequency of absolute, terrifying honesty.
Let's trace this back to the parents' love we discussed in the prologue. The all-consuming, parenthesis-bracketing love that Macy witnessed as a child.
The exact same love that completely destroyed her father when he was taken away.
Exactly. That is the exact caliber of love Elliot is offering her across the breakfast table, and it terrifies Macy to her core.
She recognizes the inherent risk. She immediately raises her shields and says, "This is a terrible idea, Elliot. I'm getting married."
The devastation in his reaction is just palpable.
But I want to explore what this revelation actually means for her current relationship. Macy goes home and she does something remarkable. She has a completely honest conversation with Sean.
I love this part of the book because it so beautifully subverts standard romance tropes.
Usually, in a story involving a reunited first love, the author makes the current fiancé a one-dimensional jerk. They make him dismissive or controlling or secretly cheating, just to make it easy for the protagonist to leave him and for the audience to cheer.
But Sean isn't the villain. He is incredibly emotionally intelligent.
He truly is, and that makes Macy's internal conflict so much more painful and realistic. She sits Sean down and admits that she had dinner with an old friend from childhood who was her first everything.
She explains the unique context. She tells Sean that after her mom died, her dad didn't know how to nurture her emotional growth, and Elliot stepped into that void. He became her best girlfriend, and her first boyfriend rolled into one inseparable entity.
And Sean's reaction is a masterclass in mature communication. He doesn't yell. He asks, calmly, if seeing this man makes her wonder what she's doing with him.
He shares a story about his own ex, Ashley, and delivers this profoundly insightful perspective. "I never got to fall out of love. I just had to move on when she walked out."
I want to lean into our house metaphor here. So what does this all mean? Sean is a well-built, sturdy house, right? And Elliot is the weather. Can you blame Macy for wanting the house after living through a hurricane as a kid?
Not at all. Sean tells her they aren't 18 anymore. They are adults in their 30s and 40s, they have chinks in their armor, and he doesn't expect her to have arrived in his life with a perfectly untouched heart.
He doesn't demand the deepest, darkest parts of Macy's soul, which is exactly why she chose him. He's a coping mechanism in human form, a very kind, mature one.
But the tragedy lies in what happens next. When Macy and Sean have sex later that night, Macy experiences this devastating internal realization.
She realizes it's good, but it isn't right.
Exactly. It doesn't set off any internal alarm bells. It's pleasant, but there is absolutely no regency. No goosebumps, no spark.
She finally admits to herself that Sean is simply the first man she's been with who didn't feel like a fundamental betrayal to Elliot. She didn't passionately choose Sean. She defaulted into him because he was safe.
And her best friend Sabrina, who observes all of this, sees right through the facade. Have you ever had a friend who refuses to let you lie to yourself?
Oh, definitely.
That is Spirta. When Macy calls her to complain that Sabrina just inherently dislikes Sean, Sabrina pushes back hard. She tells Macy, "I don't want you to marry Sean yet, but that is completely unrelated to me also wanting you to reconnect with Elliot."
Sabrina then cuts right to the bone and says, "He's your soulmate. You think I don't know that?"
Sabrina is acting as the voice of the audience in this moment. She is demanding that Macy stop hiding behind her exhaustion, stop hiding behind her demanding career, and stop using a perfectly nice man as a human shield against her own past.
And that confrontation finally provides the friction Macy needs to take action. She stops running. She gets Elliot's phone number from Liz at the reception desk.
Though she does firmly promise Liz she will halt all future non-approved information sharing.
Yeah, finally. And she texts him to set up a dinner. This brings us to the most tense, loaded encounter of the story. It is Friday, October 13th. Macy walks into the restaurant and she spots Elliot.
He's gotten a fresh haircut since the coffee shop.
The sides are cropped short, and Macy notes that it shifts his vibe from literary hipster to something she describes as skater hot.
But underneath the superficial observation about his haircut is an overwhelming electric physical awareness. When they greet each other, they share a brief hug. He whispers that she looks beautiful.
But once they sit down at the booth, they are hyper-aware of their boundaries. They don't touch again. Elliot spends the conversation anxiously tracing the condensation on his water glass.
The tension is nearly unbearable because they aren't just two old friends catching up. They are sitting across from the ghosts of their past selves, trapped inside these unfamiliar adult bodies.
They immediately establish ground rules for the dinner to protect themselves. No expectations and absolute honesty. Elliot tells her, anything you want to know, I'll tell you.
And then they engage in this surreal, highly curated exchange of information. They share what Macy calls the skimmed cream of the last 11 years.
It's essentially them reading each other the resumes of their 20s, safely avoiding the actual trauma.
It's an avoidance tactic masked as catching up. Elliot reveals he moved to New York and got an MFA at NYU. He provides the necessary updates on the loud, chaotic brothers Macy used to watch.
Nick Jr. is now a district attorney who wears terrible, shiny sharkskin suits. George is a corporate suit married to Liz. Andreas teaches 5th grade and is engaged.
And little baby Alex, the one Elliot used to read to, is now in high school and is a remarkably talented dancer.
But beneath the surface of these pleasant family updates, a much deeper psychological truth is being revealed about how trauma shapes our adult choices.
Elliot discusses his recently ended relationship with Rachel. He admits that they were just friends first, and when they hit 28 years old, they looked around, saw everyone else settling down, and just defaulted into a relationship. They chose convenience over passion.
And listening to this, Macy has a horrifying epiphany. She did the exact same thing.
She defaulted into her engagement with Sean at the exact same age of 28.
She explains her mindset to Elliot, outlining her highly pragmatic, incredibly sturdy criteria for marriage. She confesses that she always told herself that the first man she was with who didn't feel inherently wrong, the first man who didn't feel like she was actively betraying Elliot's memory, that was the man she would marry.
She built an algorithm for love to avoid the risk of a real fall.
And this is where Elliot proves why he is the only person who can truly dismantle her walls. With characteristic sharp insight, he continues tracing his finger through a drop of water on the table, doesn't raise his voice, and softly delivers a devastating blow to her logic.
He looks at her and says, "But really, according to that criteria, technically wouldn't that person be me?"
Checkmate. It is such a masterful, quiet checkmate. He completely turns her own defense mechanism against her. It's like the two of them are sitting down to read a favorite book together again, but the middle 100 pages have been violently ripped out.
That's a great analogy.
They know exactly how the story started in that closet library. They are currently living the present chapter in this restaurant. But until they find the courage to read those missing pages, until they address the massive 11-year elephant in the room about exactly why they stopped talking.
Why the phone number changed, why the tether snapped.
Right. Until then, the story of their lives makes no logical sense. Elliot refuses to let her pretend they can just be casual acquaintances. He explicitly warns her, "It will be hard for me to just be your friend, Macy. It's not in my DNA."
He is laying all his cards face up on the table, daring her to match his honesty.
This specific exchange raises a profound question about the nature of our deepest bonds. Why is it so impossible for Macy to just walk away from this dinner and marry Sean?
It's because Elliot knew her when her core identity was forming. He was there when she was actively building her understanding of the world around her mother's death. Because of that, he holds the fundamental blueprint to her heart.
Often the deepest knowledge of who we truly are is held not by ourselves, but by the people who knew us when we were at our most vulnerable.
Ignoring Elliot's return doesn't just mean she's ignoring a messy past romance. It means she is actively ignoring a foundational piece of her own identity.
Psychologically speaking, Macy cannot fully integrate her adult self. She cannot become a whole person without finally reckoning with the skinny boy who held her together with words in that Healdsburg closet.
Wow. Let's synthesize this incredible journey. We've explored how a grieving, highly literal father's interpretation of a dying mother's wish, Rule 25, taking her away to breathe, inadvertently created a physical sanctuary of shared vocabulary for two awkward kids.
We've examined how untreated, suppressed grief can drive a person to build a highly walled-off adult life, utilizing 100-hour work weeks and a very kind, very safe fiancé as human shields against emotional risk.
And we've witnessed the absolute shockwave of what happens when the one single person who holds the key to those walls suddenly drops back into the narrative, holding a dog-eared copy of Ivanhoe and demanding the absolute terrifying truth.
It serves as a compelling exploration of how desperately we try to outrun our past and how ultimately the body and the heart keep the score.
You can build the spurtiest, safest house imaginable, complete with a great thermostat and a predictable routine, but you simply cannot legislate the weather. When the storm comes, you have to face it.
So why should you, listening to this right now, care about Macy and Elliot? Because every single one of us has a safe harbor and an open ocean in our own lives.
Maybe it's a career choice where you took the steady, predictable paycheck over the wild passion project that kept you up at night.
Maybe it's a creative pursuit you completely abandoned because it demanded too much of your vulnerable soul. Or maybe, like Macy, it is a relationship. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you just stopped looking for an exit?
I want you to ask yourself, are you choosing the safe option in your life because it is genuinely deeply right for you? Or are you choosing it simply because you are terrified of the weather outside?
It's a daunting question, and answering it requires the kind of absolute, brutal honesty that Elliot brings to that dinner table. It requires us to look at the murky diagnostic mud of our own defense mechanisms and admit that sometimes the messy, unprotected, terrifying option is the only one that makes us feel truly alive.
Think about the favorite word game that Macy and Elliot played back in that closet. If you had to pick a single word right now that perfectly encapsulates the current unwritten chapter of your own life, what would it be?
Are you hushed? Are you a cynosure? Or are you ready for something completely unexpected?
And perhaps more importantly, who is the person in your life that you would trust enough to share that secret word with? The person who brackets you, like a set of parentheses.
Keep diving deep into those missing pages, and we'll catch you next time.